Hello, Governor. Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. My name is Chris from 3C Films, here to give you a good old American time. No more Kevin spoilers, stealing away all the good American jobs.
He's done what?
Damn it if his accent isn't sexy, though.
That's some of a bish. So Falcon and the Winter Soldier is now halfway through its season, and after episode 3 we're slowly starting to see the pieces fall into place. The series is obviously building towards Clarence from 8 Mile battling out with the old man from Up for the position of America's ass. Each episode improves on the last, and I think there's a lot to talk about in this one. Throughout this video, we're going to be breaking down the story, Easter eggs, and things you missed, whilst giving our theories on where things could be going. There's also been some more toy leaks on the show, so make sure you stick around until the end, and definitely don't go over to 3C Films breakdown after this. Wait, don't go! I said don't go! Anyway, last week we watched as Sam finally came face to face with Bucky, and a guy who looks like what would happen if the phrase White Boy Summer was a person. Alongside him was Battlestar Galactica, and we watched as the group took their first L to the apparent villains of the show, the Flag Smashers. We ended on a big needle drop with Bucky and Sam realising that they'd have to go to Zemo, who was of course a name in the former's redemption book. When we last saw him, he was cry-wanking over his wife's voicemail message, and arguably he's one of the best villains in the MCU. When I first saw Civil War, I was a bit meh on him, but over time I've come to appreciate his plan and how he managed to tear the Avengers apart in a way that no one else has. Now we are going to be discussing his comic book roots for the next part of the video, but if you want to skip ahead, then time codes will be linked below. Now Baron Helmut Zemo, to give him his full name, was the son of a master scientist named Heinrich who aided Germany during the Second World War. Heinrich raised his son to worship the master race, and because of this he gained the impression that the Zemos should rule the entire world. After his father died, Helmut blamed Captain America and the two developed a rivalry. At one point during their many battles, he fell into a vat of acid and became horribly disfigured and ended up donning a mask which has now become part of his character design. Over the years he's thrown down against Cap and the Avengers several times, which I'm sure you already know. However, the reason I'm telling you this is because he became a prominent member of the Thunderbolts, a group of anti-heroes in the Marvel Universe. Originally founded by Zemo before the more modern version ended up being created by General Ross, they became somewhat of a shadowy version of the Avengers that did the jobs they couldn't. Now though we don't know this for definite, it does seem like they're going to be formed in the MCU as there are several characters in the upcoming projects that will likely join their ranks. As we know, General Ross is due to feature in Black Widow, and he's also rumoured to appear in She-Hulk alongside this show. Thus it seems like he may be gathering characters like Zemo, Taskmaster, Yelena Belova, and maybe even the Abomination in order to form the group. The MCU Zemo would make the perfect candidate for this, as he's a master tactician that was a prominent member of the Sokovian Armed Forces. Zemo is a former colonel that was part of the specialist team known as Echo Scorpion, which were experts in firearms and their fistos. Whose fistos? His fistos. My fistos? Mephisto! Now as for episode 3, this Zemo-centric entry not only reintroduces him, but it brings back Sharon Carter, who we learned last week was now an enemy of the state since she broke the Sokovian Accords. We open with somewhat of an infomercial for the Global Repatriation Council, or GRC for short. In episode 1, we discover that this council managed resources for refugees brought back by the blip that were displaced on the planet. Obviously, a ton of things changed for the people that disappeared during the 5 years, and in Far From Home, Aunt May mentioned how someone had moved into her apartment. This sort of thing obviously happened in all aspects of the economy, including housing, jobs, marital status, and who the biggest YouTuber is. It used to be me, I swear. No. Now cut to John Walker in Munich entering the cafe owner's headquarters, who last week we saw offered sanctuary to the Flag Smashers. Captain America is now working with the police, which juxtaposes how things were in Civil War. During that movie, he and Bucky went toe-to-toe with those from Bucharest, but here the image that he carries has clearly been corrected. Now Cap went against them because he was doing what was right, even though it broke the law. Here we see Walker threatening witnesses and doing what's wrong whilst upholding the law, showing how the two characters juxtapose one another. It's clear that the guy's a snowflake and respect and ego are a big thing for him, but I believe that these are actually side effects of the treatment that he's been going through. Though last time he said he didn't possess super strength, we've clearly seen from what he can do that he has abilities normal people just don't possess. In the comics, Walker was given superhuman abilities by the Power Broker, who gets name dropped a lot throughout this episode and is likely the big bad that we're building towards. I think that he's likely given Walker superhuman abilities, but this is being downplayed by the government so that they can distance themselves from processes like the Super Soldier one, since Bucky and the Hulk have just created such a bad reputation around it. Now we learn that the Power Broker has been getting scientists to work on the formula, and if you want to see a bigger breakdown on the character, then check out our episode 2 video after this. Walker is extremely frustrated by the Flag Smashers constantly escaping his grasp, so he says he'll bet on someone with a better hand, which is when we cut to Berlin. Here we see Bucky and Sam meeting a god with Justice on his top, and the rest of the gods all carry it, making me think that they should start their own league. Hashtag restore the Snyderverse. Now I just had to drop that in. Now last week we learned that Zemo was kept in cell 2187, which is actually the name of layers in Star Wars A New Hope. The password that the god gives is 6172, which relates to the publication number of Dark Avengers Dark Reign. In this, the Dark Avengers were brought together by Norman Osborn, but the book also heavily featured the Thunderbolts, tying back to our prior theory. Upon entering the cell, we hear Zemo's chilling cello theme, and he starts to rattle off the mind control words that he used on Bucky during Civil War. Here things are sort of flipped around, as in that Bucky was in the cell while Zemo was on the outside, and whereas he gained control in that film, here he's unable to. Zemo says that there's still something in there left of the Winter Soldier, and this is obviously a big thing that Bucky's psyche must wrestle with. We've seen that he wants to make things right, but that he has to constantly remind himself of the rules, especially the no killing one, showing that he might not trust himself when he goes on autopilot. Zemo knows they're desperate, and with 8 super soldiers on the loose, it's clear that they have to use him. In Civil War, we discovered that he studied the entire super soldier process and was able to track down the hidden Winter Soldier training facility, so he likely knows a lot of ins and outs about it. Cut to Sam and Bucky arguing over whether to free him in a garage, and this is a similar location to the one we saw in Civil War when the pair regrouped. This is revealed to be the Zemo family lockup, and it's filled with classic cars, some of which featured in the first Avenger. Now Sam brings up an interesting point here by mentioning what Zemo did in Civil War. As we know, he killed King T'Chaka and framed Bucky. Though the Wakandans didn't blame the latter, they hold Zemo accountable and want to see him in prison. The episode ends on a big cliffhanger that we'll discuss later in the video, but him being free causes a lot of issues with their country. Now we sort of jump back and forth between this conversation and Zemo's cell as we watch how Bucky managed to break him out. During this, we learn that Zemo is reading a book by Machiavelli. Now Machiavelli is a character in history that has very much proposed the philosophy that lies, deceit and murder are acceptable if one's trying to achieve something that could benefit society. This is very much where the phrase necessary evil comes from, and Zemo himself of course carried out several Machiavellian acts as he murdered the innocent T'Chaka in order to put the Avengers on a course to where they would dissolve. Machiavelli thought that public and private morality were two separate things, and these had to be almost opposites in order to achieve greatness. It's clear that Zemo sees this somewhat reflected in superheroes in general, as he knows that they do things that lead to the death of innocents, even though they have the reputations of being protectors. Now Bucky too is following this philosophy as he manipulates 2 prisoners into fighting so that he can achieve his own goals in sneaking Zemo out. It's a great little Easter egg that shows how tactical Bucky can be too, and he was of course trained in espionage and defense strategies. At the garage, Zemo rendezvous with them, and the group discuss how breaking the law and doing what's wrong in the eyes of it can be a necessary act, which ties this entire episode neatly together thematically. Zemo divulges that this whole setup was made when he hunted down Hydra in his efforts to stop them recreating the Super Soldier Serum. He says he intended to finish his work and destroy all instances of it across the globe, as it can lead to groups like the Avengers being formed. This will no doubt put him at odds with not only Bucky, but also of course John Walker if our theories about him having this are correct. Now, I love how they finally tie in his origins with his comic book counterpart, and he reveals that his family were royalty. He also carries a coat with a similar fur pattern to what is typically used on his costume, and grabs his mask, which becomes a cool costume moment later on. I love watching Zemo cracking jokes on his private jet, and they slowly turn him into, more of your classic comic book villain. He too brings up Nakajima, who was of course the father from episode 1. Now we have it confirmed here that Steve did give Bucky this book, and it also contains the Troubled Man recommendation by Sam, which was given in the Winter Soldier. Now Zemo gives his point of view not only on Steve but icons in general, and how they are put on pedestals. It's something I've noticed recently in politics, and pretty much every side seems to ignore the bad things that their favourite party leader does, and they completely overlook the flaws because they believe the core message. If amplified, these flaws can cause serious issues, and also make it so that people can't be touched, and as we know, absolute power corrupts absolutely. Zemo realises that it's the people who will suffer because of this, and his ideology becomes something that I think elevates him above a lot of the other villains in the MCU. He brings up the Red Skull, and from here they head to Madripoor. In the Marvel Universe, this fictional Asian island is modelled on Singapore, and it's somewhere that Wolverine often frequented. A haven for criminals, this place is separated into High Town and Low Town. Both are as bad as each other, but the High Town centres around more white-collar crimes, whilst Low Town is pretty much the petty ones. High Town manipulate those in Low Town so that they can remain in power, and again, it all ties back to Machiavelli. The writer of this one must have been a big Tupac fan, which, that album bangs as well. Now jump to a GRC camp to see Carly playing football, and I definitely think moments like this are shaping the Flag Smashers up to be the good guys. It's difficult to paint someone out as a villain when they're helping out the poor and watching their friends and family die, and I'm telling you, they're gonna be the goodies by the end. You just watch it. Next we arrive in Madripoor and see the trio of terror going under new identities. This includes Conrad Mack, aka the Smiling Tiger from Marvel Comics. In the source material, his mother and father were part of a cult, and the pair raised him to be almost feral. Under the moniker Smiling Tiger, he participated in several criminal acts, stole a Quinjet, and crashed this in Madripoor, where he became a big player in underworld crime. We see a photo of the character who looks a lot like Sam, so it is possible that he will be popping up at some point down the line, hopefully played by Anthony Mackie. With an escort, they travel to Lowtown and head to the Bronze Monkey Saloon, which is way more modern than its comic book counterpart. Sometimes called the Brass Monkey, this has seen several fights in it over the years, and it's pretty much the Mos Eisley Cantina of the Marvel Universe. Bucky's reputation precedes him, and due to Sam looking similar to Tiger, they think that it's him. It's hilarious watching him having to swallow Tiger's favourite drink, which involves downing the internal organs of a snake. And once bars open up, that's going to be the first drink I order. Now, it's at this point we get another mention of the Power Broker. We learn throughout the episode that he's hunting the Flag Smashers for the Super Soldier Serum that they've stolen from him. This ties back to him not only experimenting on people, but potentially also giving it to Walker, who I'm telling you was US agent all along. Now Bucky pretends to be under the command of Zemo in order to remain in character, and we hear his theme music thump away as he goes wild on the locals. This gets them an audience with Selby, who in the comics is a mutant capable of interacting with any computer due to being fluent in their language. They've changed the character up quite a bit, and it's unclear whether she possesses these abilities or not. I kinda doubt it, and she seems more like an information broker than anything else. Now she gives the name Dr. Wilfred Nagel, who in the comics was part of Project Rebirth. After the death of Dr. Erskine, he and his men were tasked with recreating the Super Soldier Serum, and they carried out experiments on black soldiers. As we know, Isaiah Bradley went through this process, and they violated several human rights laws. It's going to be interesting to see if they tie this into him or not, as it could have potentially been his father that worked on it during the war, and this could link up with Bradley. I'm not too sure on that, but either way, we now know that the Super Soldier Serum being recreated is the main driving force of the show. After Sam gets a call from Ryan Aries' mom, the cover is blown and Sharon Carter kills Selby, which sets off a John Wick-like bounty throughout the entire town. This creates a big action scene with bikes, and all of a sudden, Bucky can't do his super fast running. Hey, I noticed that, but you should be running. Now Sharon Carter arrives, and I was actually reading the Ultimates last night and remembered that in that Bucky's daughter was called Sharon too. Hopefully they don't hook up, because I don't know if I can take any more incest involving this character at this point. Turns out she's been living in Madripoor since stealing the shield and Sam's wings, and they head to her place in Hightown. We discover that she's amassed a ton of stolen artwork from museums and swapped them out with forgeries. Maybe this is a nod to the fake shield being put in the museum, as the real one was destroyed by Thanos in Endgame, but that's probably a reach. Let's be honest, it's a reach, isn't it? Now, Sharon discusses the hypocrisy in being a hero, and the episode very much tackles the idea that the shield has ruined several people's lives. Sam grapples with whether he should have destroyed the one ring, the one shield, and he weighs up whether it's even worth existing. Now, the real gem at this party is Zemo dancing, and he not only destroyed the Avengers, but also destroyed every single person on the dance floor. With moves like that, you can see how he's the best villain in the MCU, and I want to see a dance-off between him and Thanos to decide who's greater. Shabao! From here they head to the shipyard, and we see the classic Madripoor flag on one of the containers. In one they discover a secret lab with Nagel, and guards descend on the place, which Sharon ends up going atomic blonde on. It's an awesome fight scene, and inside the container we learn from Nagel that he was brought in by Hydra after the events of Civil War. Once they fell, he joined the CIA and extracted blood from Isaiah Bradley whilst he was a prisoner. This allowed him to recreate the super soldier serum, and he built an optimized formula that flew under the radar. This is why all of the Flag Smashers appear like normal people, and it also explains why Walker isn't as built as Chris Evans, who's a hunk, I'm telling you. No, Nagel was dusted, and once the project was abandoned, he went to work for the power broker. Carly stole his formula and then contacted him to help someone called Donya, wish your girlfriend was a freak like me, who was the woman we saw Carly looking over. Dying of TB due to the hygiene quality of the camps, she needed the serum to fight off the disease. Zemo kills Nagel, and all hell breaks loose when an RPG is fired at the lab, destroying all of the scientists' work. The scene from every action movie ever happens, and Zemo puts his mask on, showing off the combat skills that he learned in Echo Scorpion. Bucky tells someone to pipe down, and Zemo steals a classic car. Sharon promises to return to the States once they get her a pardon, and Bucky refuses to move his seat forward, which is obviously a callback to the car scene in Civil War. At a GRC supply depot, we see Carly talking about how the life she was promised was snapped away by the people returning. We get it confirmed that they've taken the serum, and hey, Captain Obvious here, but I'm giving myself a tick for getting that one fan theory right. Now, these refugees have been neglected by everyone returning, and all they want are the opportunities that were stolen from them. Thus, they simply view stealing as taking back what's theirs, and due to their abilities, they can handle most problems with these. Carly ends up murdering the security guards at the outpost, and this will of course cause their threat level to escalate, meaning that they will be hunted harder than ever before. Cap and Battlestar arrive at Zemo's prison, and they decide to go off the books to achieve their goals. This shows that Cap is further drifting into acting in shades of grey, which his predecessor of course got in trouble for. On Zemo's jet, we learn that Donya has died, and from here they change course and head to Riga in Latvia. Here Zemo talks about the Sokovian Memorial, which we know from the trailers he ends up visiting. Sensing that they're being followed, Bucky finds a Wakandan butt bead, and he heads to an alley where he comes face to face with T'Challa's bodyguard, who we met in Civil War. She shows up like, what kind of shit is this? And the nation is clearly angered over Zemo being free. Now this could go one of two ways, and the first of that being Bucky explains the situation and everyone understands it. The other option is that it's war with Wakanda, baby. But I kind of feel like they will go with the former, and that Zemo will be put on a time limit once everything's just kind of brought out into the open. This means that the Wakandans will allow him to operate, but say that they want him brought in once the mission is complete. But obviously we'll see whether he gets away or not, as, let's face it, the dude has got those killer moves. God damn! Okay, so what did I think of the episode as a whole? Well, yet again, I have to really marvel at the production quality that Disney are bringing to this show. It really sets the bar high as far as action scenes go, and everything in the series feels like it's worthy of being on the big screen. Just the way it's framed, the varying locations that we visit, and the sheer size and scale of it, it all feels like it could easily be placed alongside the MCU movies and be part of them. The acting is also great, and I love the often laid back performance that Mackie gives, which makes him seem like someone who thinks before speaking. This somber side makes him and Sebastian Stan great to watch, and they really nail the complexities of their characters, even though they often spend long moments in silence. That being said, in regards to the series as a whole, I do feel like some of the slower moments hurt the pacing a bit on rewatches, but I'm guessing that not many people sit around watching these things over and over like I do. It's a very minor nitpick, of course. I just don't want to show up every week like a shillionaire in the review part of the video and say, you know, it's amazing, there's no faults to it at all, so I'm sorry, I do have to discuss the nitpicks. Now, as we head into the latter part of the season, I really can't wait to see how things develop, and this has got me hyped for what's coming down the line. But what exactly can we expect over the next couple of weeks? Well, before we get into that, I just want to give a huge thank you for watching up until this point of the video, and if you're enjoying it, then please smash the thumbs up button. Also, make sure you subscribe for breakdowns on the show every week, as well as Amazon's Invincible, which you should definitely watch if you haven't already. Now, as for the leaks, recently on the subreddit Marvel Studios Spoilers, an old post from last year was brought up from Atlanta Filming. It detailed that #Falcon and the Winter Soldier filmed at a former courthouse turned museum that would have a big character appearing at it. The post said, when you watch the show and your jaw hits the floor, this is the spot where it happened. Can't wait for you to see who is in the scene. Remember to message when your mind explodes. Now, there are a number of characters that this could be, and currently everyone on the internet is running wild with theories over who it is. However, we've been working with a source close to Marvel and can exclusively reveal that this is in fact Paul Bettany again. Now I've seen people stating that it's either Wolverine or a member of the X-Men, but after WandaVision ended up giving me a soft one with that boner reveal, I am tempering my expectations. It has been long said that the mutants are coming to the MCU, but whether that's in this show or not, we don't know as of yet. It does seem kind of weird to introduce them in such a grounded series, and personally I would have thought that WandaVision was the place to do it. However, with rumours of Omega Red and the X-Men popping up, we just don't know. I actually think that it may be Steve Rogers, aka Chris Evans, as there's a lot of questions surrounding where he is and what he's up to. The setting of a museum makes sense, as well as the character is of course a historical figure and the shield itself was supposed to be placed into one. It could also be the Power Broker or potentially even Zola, who seems to have become the new Mephisto when it comes to the person that everyone thinks will be in the show. I'm not saying that though, I'm not saying it's Zola. I refuse to go down that fan theory path again. Now, they could throw a real spanner in the works by bringing Scarlett Johansson back, and it's going to be interesting to see whether this is as mind-blowing as it's hyped up to be, or if it's just clickbait. Let me know your theories below, and it also looks like we have another action figure spoiler that reveals the fate of one of the characters. Now, I'm dropping a spoiler warning here just in case you don't want anything ruined, so bail out now if you don't want to know, because it is a bit of a big reveal. Okay, so in addition to the Sam Wilson ones from last week, we also have a black suit John Walker with the figure name US Agent. As we've long been predicting, the character will become him when Sam eventually gets the mantle of Captain America. Now, this black and red suit aligns highly with the comics and is pretty much what he's worn throughout his long and rich history. You may also notice that he's missing the shield, and in the comics he does eventually get a vibranium disc that he uses for his protection. I think that the show is just going to keep things simple and make it so that there's only one shield and that Sam eventually ends up taking it. Wyatt Russell has recently come out and said that he's down to return after the show wraps up, and though he's the villain that everyone loves to hate, I would really like to see him in this universe, maybe even as a potential Thunderbolt member, eh? Now anyway, that wraps up the major new tidbits that we have for the show, and it sounds like there's a lot coming down the line that we can look forward to. Obviously, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the episode and what you think is going to be coming in the future. Let me know below, and as a thank you for interacting with the video, you'll be entered into a prize draw on the 30th of April, in which we're giving away 3 copies of Zack Snyder's Justice League in 4K. All you have to do to be in with a chance of winning is like the video, make sure you subscribe with notifications on, and drop a comment below with your thoughts on the entry. The winners of last month's competition are on screen right now, so if that's you, then message me on Twitter at Heavy Spoilers. If you want something else to watch, then make sure you check out our breakdown of Godzilla vs Kong, which will be linked on screen right now. We've gone over the entire plot of the movie, talked about some of the Easter eggs, and also the ending, which has a couple of cool little tidbits in it. With that out of the way, thank you for sitting through the video. I've been Paul, and I'll see you next time. Take care, peace.